Hello again. I've been looking at a new book for children which has only been published this week and presents a thoroughly false picture of Britain's past, fobbing off children with all kinds of falsehoods, errors, and deliberate propaganda. Sad to relate, this particular book is published by Dorling Kindersley, now an imprint of Penguin Books. That such a well-known publisher should put their name to this stuff is shocking. The book is called The Black Curriculum: Important Sites in Black British History. Let's have a look inside. Well, the first thing we find is a timeline. Yeah. It tells us that. I wonder if anybody can see here. Well, it's about Beachy Lady. It says Beachy Head Lady. The first black Briton known to us was a woman of sub-Saharan African descent. Well, this is of course quite untrue. David Olusoga made the same claim in his book for children about black British history, but it's nonetheless a lie for that. The remains of the so-called Beachy Head woman, a skeleton was found near Eastbourne in Sussex, dating from the Roman period. What happened was that someone looked at her skull and thought to themselves, oh, that's funny, she looks a bit African. And from then on, everybody started doing reconstructions showing her as a black woman. The remains, however, have had their DNA extracted and analysed at the Crick Institute, and there is not the least trace of African ancestry. She was from southern Europe, most likely Cyprus. So, saying that the Beachy Head Lady was the first woman of sub-Saharan African descent known to us in Britain is either a deliberate falsehood or the author simply cannot be bothered to do any research. Neither of these possibilities is very promising for what is supposed to be a history book. What's next? Oh, yes, here's a picture of Hadrian's Wall. Yeah. And there's a Roman soldier, black, of course. What does it say? In Roman times, troops from North Africa built Hadrian's Wall along the border between England and Scotland. Well, Hadrian's Wall was built between 122 and 128 AD, and there is literally no evidence at all to suggest that Africans were connected in any way at all with building it. It's true that an altar was found dating from 253 AD, that is to say 130 years later, mentioning a detachment of Moors, but these were Berbers. They were from North Africa, but were certainly not black. The claim that Africans built Hadrian's Wall is simply an invention, or to give it its proper name, a lie. Then we've got an old favourite cropped up here, John Edmondson. If we look at the timeline, it begins by saying here about John Edmondson. John Edmondson moves to Edinburgh by 1824 and works for the University of Edinburgh's Zoological Museum. Well, that's not true. He didn't work for the museum at all. In fact, he was a black taxidermist. He gave lessons in stuffing birds to students from the university, but he didn't work for the museum at all. One of his students, the students that took lessons from him, was Charles Darwin, of course. But it says here, John Edmondson's life is amazing, especially because we don't often hear about the brilliant black British science that shaped history. I'm not at all sure that taxidermy has really shaped British history. And then we see here, without John Edmondson, Charles Darwin might not have developed his theory of evolution. Seriously? Let's look at Wales. Here we are, the Welsh Hall of Fame. It says here, have a look at the black Welsh people below who have made a great impact on Welsh and British society. Do you recognise any? Well, I don't know. Let's have a look. First, we have Iris de Freitas Brazeo. Well, she wasn't Welsh at all, nor did she have any impact at all on Welsh or British society. She was from British Guiana in South America. She went to the University of Aberystwyth, studied law there, and then when she got a degree, she went back to South America to practice. So she wasn't Welsh, and she didn't have any impact at all on Welsh society. Black Welsh people, indeed. And so it goes on. Lie after lie is interspersed with silly schoolboy howlers. It would take 5 minutes to go through this book and correct the errors, but the author, Melody Triumph, evidently doesn't have 5 minutes to spare for that. At the back of the book, we have this priceless piece of supposed information. In these books, we have focused on Black British history. That's Black history from England, Wales, and Scotland. This is why you'll notice us talking about Britain, which is made up of England, Wales, and Scotland. We're not referring to the UK, which is made up of Britain and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland itself had so much black history that we'd need a whole separate book to cover it properly. Northern Ireland has so much black history we'd need a book to cover it. I was in Belfast for a time in 1972 and various other parts of the province, and the only black people I saw at that time were British soldiers. I don't believe that black people lived in Northern Ireland until a few years ago, and I've yet to hear that any of those recent immigrants has done anything worth writing a book about. As Black History Month approaches, make a note in your diaries, children, it's this October. Be prepared for more and more of these lies to be making their appearance, especially in schools near you. If you are British, then this is what your sons and daughters and grandchildren will be learning in October. A pack of fairy tales, exaggerations, and, I'm sorry to say, downright falsehoods.